the audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GuMPer.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, GuMPers.
Funny camera things. My mouse is all wobbly, but then again, so my look. There's a fantastic man cold, man flu meme on the screen for you there. I don't think I'm going to make it. Save yourself. Want some orange juice? Says the missus. You're the best. Just hold the straw in my mouth. Mrs. M's just come in to save the show this morning. Michael Heronius Maximus is standing by as well. Yeah, I'm not feeling the Mae West this morning. Let me just, and this mouse is, you know, mouses are like, mice are like their owners, aren't they? I'm not
Do we own them?
What, mouses? It's all wobbly. My mouse is wobbly like me.
Oh gosh.
This morning. Yeah. So how are you, Mrs. M? Let's get you onto the screen, shall we? Everything ready in your department over there?
I don't know.
Shall we see? It's all wobbly. What? Why? What? Oh, the mouse. The mouse is going on.
Mouse.
I'm not using. Oh, I imagine what this one is causing a problem. There are 3 mice in operation at the moment.
Well, there you might.
And when one is hovering, one of them is hovering dangerously, which is causing the other 2 to. It's like that one's plugged in.
What for?
To be used as a mouse. Right, you're on the screen. Can you see yourself?
Oh, yeah, just
beautiful. And I think Michael will enjoy the vibes this morning. He likes watching the interplay between us two. I don't know what he means.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good morning. Hola, bon dia, Alegria is what I meant to say a long time ago. Welcome to the Good Morning Portugal live stream podcast and show where we have let's bring him straight on with a World Cup update. Hello, mate.
Bon dia. Good morning. Oh, you didn't tell me Louisa was coming on. Even more reason to join you this morning. Fantastic.
Yes. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Unlike Mr. M, who's full of, I don't know.
I know. I was very concerned. I was just chatting to him in the green room now, and he looked very flush and red, but in an unhealthy way, you know? He didn't look good.
Yeah.
Bless him.
You know what?
I'll be okay.
I just realised it's this time of year, and what happens is, I think, because he never had it in the UK, I think he has like his flu nose, not his flu nose, his mold nose or his mold chest. As the mold starts to grow in the house, all we need to do is just like do some old vinegaring around
yes.
you know, and just try and dehumidify, and because I mean it doesn't normally get quite this wet, does it? But at the moment it's
that's a good point.
wet.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You need to ventilate a little bit, just get all that mold out. Yeah.
I'll be all right.
Bless him, holding his hand.
Yeah. I mean, if that wasn't bad enough, Michael, you're here this morning to talk about, or to help us get over the fact that Portugal and England crashed out of the World Cup. Well, maybe not crashed, but had to fly home last Sunday after leaving the World Cup. 31 teams have got to lose, of course, and they did get to the last 8, didn't they? Which is quite an achievement. But how are you feeling about that?
Well, I mean, I'm used to it. That's the thing, right? We've seen this over the last. Yeah, it's not an unusual thing as an English fan. I mean, to be honest, I was very skeptical before the game. I know there was a lot of there was a lot of hype that we were going. Yeah, there was a lot of hype that we were going to do well. We were going to beat the French, but my experience of being an England fan is that we do not win 50-50 fixtures. It's very unusual. You know, just it's a mentality. It's a winning mentality that for some reason we haven't had since we won in '66, and it's a problem.
1966. That is a very long time ago. Mrs. M wasn't even born. You weren't born. I was just.
You were only just born.
I was only just born. Yeah. And incredible.
I do feel for the players. I thought they played very well. Obviously, I think it's very fine margins at this level. You put in an incredible amount of work to get to a quarterfinal of the World Cup, because it's the 2 years of qualifying, and then obviously the preparation, the games in the tournament. But at least I didn't feel, and when the game ended, I didn't feel that there was any kind of like injustice. I thought we played well. The French deserved to win, but I didn't think we played badly. But again, I wasn't overly surprised, if that makes sense. And with Portugal, I just thought everyone's underestimated Morocco. I think they're a very good side. It's not a fluke. They're very well organized. They do everything incredibly well, very simply but very well. And I think the French have got to be careful. I've got a feeling they might cause another upset. Let's see. Although I'm very happy Argentina are still in it. My mum is actually here with me. She arrived yesterday. So
Oh,
I'm very
excellent.
happy
Just send her our love, won't you?
Say
You can
hello.
make
I
your mum.
will. I will. Yeah, I'm gonna be able to watch the game with her tonight. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
tonight, is it? So can
that's
you
tonight
tell
at
us? So
7.
we're so over it. Absolutely, we're over it. England, Portugal. So what do we look forward to now? Because I know, I mean, for you, you're loving the game, aren't you? And it's
Yeah.
about football above all. And you're still very excited, I'm sure, about the World Cup. What have we got to look forward to now?
Yeah, so tonight is Argentina Croatia at 7, and that will be a great game because Croatia got to the final in 2018. They have also been a team like Morocco that have kind of just quietly made their progress, but they're a very good side. So I think that'll be a tight game. And then tomorrow at 7 is France Morocco. So 2 semi-finals. The final is on Sunday at 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. How will you be preparing, and what would you recommend to others who, I think quite a few people who are watching this show aren't familiar with football necessarily, or soccer. And how will you be preparing? What would you recommend to people who want to get involved in the spectacle? A bit like us, watching the Super Bowl. I wouldn't know how to do that. How would a rookie, a newbie to the World Cup, possibly approach the game?
Yeah, I mean, what I would suggest, it's interesting because normally most TV channels, unlike in the UK, they don't show a build up, so to speak. If you have a VPN, if you're able to watch BBC's coverage of the matches, it's very good because they normally do an hour's build up. They do a good analysis and they do it in a way that is very unpatronizing. So they assume that the viewer has little to no knowledge of football in terms of the way that they present it, but at the same time they don't make you feel inferior for not having that knowledge. So I think that's always good. They tend to have guests on that have either played for or are of one of the two countries that are playing, so they can give you a bit of background on the players, on the team, on how they play, and that's always a nice introduction because they often assume that a lot of neutral fans will be watching games at this stage of the tournament just because of the coverage. So that's always a good one to watch. Something like the BBC, even though I'm not a huge fan of the BBC anyway, but for this particular purpose, they give you a good analysis, and you will feel that you're not coming to it from like a point of zero. So that would be my suggestion.
And
there's plenty of good YouTube channels out there as well that you can watch.
Oh, good. Okay, and they're streaming the game live as well. Or just
BBC One. BBC One is streaming it live. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And it's not. You don't have to take the whole day off, do you? Like you do with the Super Bowl. It's not.
No.
I think somebody was saying, one of our community was saying, Super Bowl. The game of American football itself lasts an hour, but the whole TV show and all the stoppages and everything, it goes on for 3 days or something. Doesn't it?
More because so American football. I think it's 4 quarters of 20 minutes, is it? 15 minutes? It's a bit like basketball. Is it 2 halves of 30? I can't remember. But because of the stoppages, the game will actually last 2 or 3 hours.
That's
and
right.
then with the build-up, it's like 4 or 5. Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 hours. So with soccer, the best part is it's just 2 halves of 45 minutes. So typically, if it kicks off at 7, it's going to be over by 9 unless there's extra time and penalties.
Yeah.
So
because there's no concert from Mariah Carey for 2 hours. There's no 3-hour commercial break between each of the quarters. It's a little bit. No one sparks up a barbecue during the game either, do they? Generally speaking.
No. The final for the final, there probably will be some kind of ceremony before.
Oh yes,
but it's not as lengthy as the Super Bowl. No.
Okay, all right, and culturally, I think I have found the I was saying yesterday, I've found the World Cup in Qatar educational. If they ever meant to tick that box in the sort of Olympic spirit, I was saying yesterday, of learning something that transcends the sport, the spirit of sport and sportsmanship and so on, sports personship. That's definitely ticked the box for me. I've challenged my own prejudices and ideas with the game being played, with the tournament being played in Qatar. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like it was a little bit not hypocritical, but I think in some respects, okay, we can question the circumstances in which Qatar were given the World Cup, and I think I've already expressed my views about it. But I think the irony was, I saw journalists as the World Cup was kicking off. They're in Qatar. They're being treated with VIP kind of like hospitality, and they're there to talk about football. They're just focusing on the Qataris and the culture there. And then at the same time, you had, I think, 8 other countries also in the World Cup where it's also, for example, illegal to be gay as well. So, you know, I just find it a bit, no country's perfect. That's what I'm saying. Maybe in the UK, we haven't got the extremity of banning homosexuality, but we've got plenty of things that we shouldn't be particularly proud of either. So, you know, apples and oranges, right?
For sure. Yeah. And then, you know, it's good to look for the, you know, the underlying spirit or the transcendent values that I think these tournaments, it's a part of their mission statement, I think, isn't it, to, as well as play the games, to bring something to educate and as well as entertain people.
Yeah, and you know, no alcohol or little alcohol. We haven't heard any stories about any hooliganism or any fights or any violence. So,
God, could you imagine if they do that in the UK?
Well, that's what people have had to do. People have had to fight in the UK instead, haven't they? Have a tear up down Trafalgar Square or whatever. But there you go. So exactly, we have our own difficulties to address. Nobody's perfect. All right, Ian Turner, apart from us not here. Bon dia, GuMPer. Still very snowy here in Hertfordshire. Lovely for a walk if you're well wrapped up and with good footwear. Good call on that, Mr. Turner. And thank you for your advent calendar inclusion. We have the snow. Oh, that's New Jersey from Gene. This is Hertfordshire. He was proudly talking about his 6 inches yesterday.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Very pretty. Thank you very much for that, Coach Turner. And also, you have a God score tip of the day. But let's have a complete look. Isn't it lovely how snow falls like that? And then we can go to Gene's picture in New Jersey, Westwood, New Jersey, who says, looking forward to not having snow because it's only pretty for the first 5 minutes. It may be. You know, this is what happens now, isn't it? That goes kind of black and, icy or slushy. Is the next stage, isn't it? For after the people have been excited and delighted by the snow. Okay, so Michael, when you're looking forward to the final on Sunday, and you'll be surrounding yourself maybe with 1 or 2 bottles of beer and some snacks, and enjoying yourself watching that. Ronaldo, we need to talk about as well, don't we? He's been thanked by the president, of course, and I think people have taken. It's funny, isn't it, how now the tournament's over and it's looking like it might be the last one he plays any significant part in. And arguably, did he play a significant part in this one? Things are moving on, aren't they, for the Portuguese game?
Yeah, I mean, I would briefly like to talk about Portugal, because I thought I was a bit disappointed with not the fact that I didn't think Morocco deserved to win, but I thought it was a bit unfair on Ronaldo for everyone to say, well, Portugal played better without him, because I think sometimes that could be a coincidental thing. But also I feel like the fact that he didn't start that game, and I thought Portugal did actually play well in the first half, I felt maybe the coach panicked a little bit, brought him on too early, and they kind of lost their shape a bit, and then it unfortunately didn't work out. But I think probably for Ronaldo, maybe it is the right time for him to retire. And I think the team is very good. There's a lot of young players coming through there. So I think the future of Portuguese football is extremely bright. And, you know, he's responsible for a lot of that. I think, you know, he was he wasn't the first, because there's been big Portuguese players that have played for top European clubs before him. But there was the timing of him moving to Manchester United as a 17-year-old in 2003, and then Mourinho managing Chelsea in 2004. They were kind of like the poster boys for Portuguese football, both with Mendes as their agent, and then Mendes sort of started to, you know, really convince the world of the credibility of Portuguese football as being really capable, and that's kind of been like a wave ever since. So I think that Ronaldo is, you know, obviously he has deserves a lot of praise, but at the same time, probably he should probably move on now, I think, and give the younger players a chance.
And when do you think we'll hear an announcement about his domestic game?
It's a good one, you know. I mean, I've heard rumors that he's been offered ridiculous money by 2 Saudi Arabian clubs to play there for a couple of years, which, given the backlash he's had in Portugal, he might decide to do that. But I also heard a rumor that he's enrolled his children in one of the international schools in Carcavelos. So maybe he'll be moving to Sporting in January. We'll see. But
and his limousines, his cars have arrived as well in Portugal.
His cars have arrived.
So
he's building a home by the Octavius Hotel in Guincho. So it's probably going to be Sporting. But let's see.
Okay, we shall look forward to that. Okay, we've got a God Score tip of the day. Mrs. T arrived back from a week in Fuengirola yesterday evening, very refreshed. When was the last time you took a proper break just for yourself? Can't remember. For athletes, the rest is as important as the training. Okay, and allows the body and mind to recharge and recuperate. I'm going to do that today.
Yes.
I'm going to have a hot bath and a
you need
brand.
to rest, mate.
Take the dogs for a walk, have a bath, and then go to bed until tonight's streams. So yeah, good call on that, Coach T. Even a few hours can make a difference. Chill.
Yeah,
says
I had
Coach Turner.
what we've called a white
box day.
White box day. On Saturday, I had a little like moment of overwhelm, and I said, "Oh God, I just want to sit in a like white box where there's no extra sensory like rubbish. Like I didn't want any noise.
No children, basically, right?
Yeah, well,
Or husband.
or husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Washing, nothing. And the really strange thing was this big white van pulled up right in front of us, just
box.
as Carl was just about to give me a suggestion, and the number plate on it was CM 1122. Like 2 power numbers, a bit of like like 2 master numbers, but CM like Colmanson. And he actually said, "Look, I'll give you your white box day tomorrow." And so on Sunday, once the kids were dressed, I got back into bed and it's perfect.
Was it
I
good?
feel so much better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I might
So
try
we're gonna have our like bed days. I think they're a great idea.
Lots of love to anyone who's not feeling well today. Just take
Yeah.
it easy. Take it easy, as the coach is suggesting. James, bom dia, GuMPers. Feliz terça a todos. Como tem passado?
We have got a football related comment that I just want to share.
Excellent. Yeah, do
Michael was talking about the behavior of people.
What?
And Qatar built a jail with 250 cells for any football hooligans arrested would receive a 5-year sentence. Any public damage or assault on police, 10 years. Strong law, no nonsense approach. So that might be also why we've not heard of any of that.
Well, because they're banged up for 5 years.
Yeah,
See, sometimes though these stories are propagandist stories, aren't they? I think they can be as well. I'm not doubting you, Deagle, but sometimes these are the ones that the Western press love to report, aren't they? You know, it's a football related thing when it cuts someone's foot off. It's like. A minute, that's a real kind of stereotypical, emotion rousing kind of angle on things. So we do have to be careful with these things. But I don't doubt you for one moment, Deagle, who also has a comment on
Gaelic football.
Yeah, now that's a tough sport, right? What's this? Hurling and Gaelic football for adults is 35 minutes each half. Fast, hard game. Who doesn't like it hard and fast in the morning? And everyone an amateur. You wouldn't shout that out though, would you? It's
amateur.
Nothing. You're doing great. It's community based, but over 2,600 clubs in Ireland worldwide. What's this? The Gaelic Amateur Association, possibly in 46 countries. Who knew? That's amazing. And you continue with your weather report from Belfast this morning. Are you industrial action continuing today, Deagle? Bon dia, Carl and GuMPers from it's dry, thankfully. -4 in Belfast. Cold first day yesterday. Striking for better conditions in the NHS. Nurses strike Thursday and next Tuesday. We're staggering the strike. What was that for maximum effect? Presumably nurses out Thursday and next Tuesday. We're hoping media and citizens give politicians grief a hard time as we ask for more staff. 7,000 vacancies how do you run a health service? Any kind of service when there are 7,000 vacancies in it? It's extraordinary, isn't it? Really, really extraordinary. -6 in New Jersey this morning. Good morning to you, Eugene. Michael, did you want to respond to that? You were
no, just but I think there was something I read where basically the government said if you fall over in the snow, don't call an ambulance because no one's going to come and collect you because of the shortages. Yeah.
I actually said,
what are you supposed to do? Just lie there until the weather improves?
Crawl.
Crawl back to your house.
Yeah. Crawl.
I spoke to my parents yesterday who are enjoying this, looking out the window and enjoying the snow.
Yes.
And they were saying, "Oh God, it strikes everywhere. The post, everything in the UK." They just listed off a whole thing, and I just said, "Don't go out. If you've got food, stay in." Because one place you don't want to end up right now is, needing a hospital or an ambulance or something like that. Not in the UK.
Okay.
This is something that for the US audience they'll find it shocking, but we used to have a very good public health service in the United Kingdom where it was all free and great and reliable. Now it's not. But the US, if you in the US, I think if you call an ambulance and you don't have private medical insurance, just calling an ambulance taking you to hospital is like $2,000.
Really?
So, you know, we've been very lucky not to have
Yes.
this, but obviously now it's you know,
I hope you get a coffee for that as well on the way. I mean, that's just a lot of money, isn't it?
it's a lot.
What, they're just going to
That's
like drive over to
But,
Starbucks
I mean, how can they?
get
I mean,
you
for,
one to go?
for a moment though. I mean, how can you justify 2,000 for? I mean, yes,
I'd want a
I
massage.
mean, I'd take an Uber, and you know, unless I've been shot in the stomach, I'd take an Uber and, you know, take my chances.
yeah, and
Yeah.
even then
we
you
get
might
there,
take
right?
an Uber, but the Uber's like, no, sorry, buddy, you're not getting in here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, you are pushing that tea towel into your guts. You're not coming in. For 2,000, I would be wanting to go coast to coast in America and taking it, you know, Niagara Falls and other sites. You know, the world's largest elastic band ball. You know, all those tourist centres. I want to see them on the way to hospital for $2,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe that's the shape of things to come in the UK. But however, look, we've always got a dilemma. If you do have a fall, you can say to yourself, from adversity, I can learn the value of patience and feel a whole lot better. That's not where it's meant to be used, is it? I don't think.
No, it's
Okay.
not, is it?
All right, but that is
No.
fantastic for a
No, I
cue.
disagree with that. I disagree with the context of that.
That was quite a clunky shift, wasn't it, from falling over the ice to the spiritual values of the Dalai Lama. From adversity, we can learn the value of patience. Thank you for that, James. And Yogi Berra quote of the day: never make predictions, especially about the future. Now, he's going to do that. James is making a prediction. Tomorrow will be the final Yogi Berra quote of the day. My list has been finally depleted. We'll miss those. We might have to start them again. A bit like dad jokes, we'll recycle them. Coming up at 9, we've got Mamabear McGowan, who has a nice Vaseline finish to her lens this morning, by the look of it. You're in soft focus there, Mama Bear. So we'll see what happens at 9 o'clock. And of course, we'll be joined by Ewout. Have I pronounced his name, Mama Bear? Can you indicate to me? Do I say Ewout? You don't know either. Okay, Ewout Van-Manen is joining us from about 9:15 as well, who was hard to pigeonhole yesterday. Quite the job on a conversation with him yesterday. What is it? How would you describe yourself? Do I have to describe myself? No, you can be a Renaissance man, and we won't pigeonhole you, and we'll find out more about you tomorrow. So that's what we'll be doing there. Was this bleach? Now we have an alternative, don't we? Bleach in a spray bottle kills mold. Ventilation for 1 hour also kills your lungs, doesn't it? Also a spider plant in damp rooms, but don't water them. They absorb the damp, moist air. We like a bit of vinegar, as I think you said earlier on, Mrs. M, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, we have a spray bottle that we whip out and like, and then get a tea towel, and it sorts it out really quickly.
Yes.
But you've got to really be vigilant, because just in this week where we've had like so much rain, we can see like these little black dots appearing on our.
Yeah,
on
You've
our
got to
sink.
get it early as well, right? You've got to get it early. Yeah.
Like the bloody moldy Misterons. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
No, I don't.
This is the voice of the Misterons. You don't know what the Misterons are?
I have no idea. I think he's talking before our
Jerry
time,
Anderson.
Michael, isn't he?
Do either of you know who Jerry Anderson is?
No.
Oh, you need educating.
No.
You'll love it.
It's a relief. We don't know.
It was filmed in super marionation.
I have no idea what he's talking about. You know, in the 12 years
Help
we've been
me,
together,
somebody.
When Carl was wearing a monocle and a top hat, probably.
Exactly.
He would love that.
And
actually.
singing Marina,
Yeah,
Aqua Marina. Oh, she was so good. She was my first crush, Aqua Marina.
Who is that?
You don't know who Aqua Marina is?
Who is
no
this?
idea. Literally no idea what you're talking about.
My day in bed today might be a little trip down memory lane.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But how sad, though, to find a 50-year-old man looking at pictures of Aqua Marina.
Who is probably now 80.
She's an old wooden puppet.
I was actually thinking she's a real woman.
No, she's a wooden puppet.
I mean, that's the weird thing, isn't it? When you see like what your crushes look like now. You know, gone are the days when I used to fancy Nick Rhodes. I mean, he looks like flipping Peter Stringfellow. You know, I mean,
nothing wrong with that. Different strokes for different folks. Okay. Morning, guys from Owen. How you doing, mate? Lovely to see you here. And third place match, of course, Saturday, 3 p.m. Yes, so exciting to be looking forward to the World Cup final. American football is 1 hour of actual playtime, but add 1 hour of advertising and an hour of advertising and another hour of time between plays and timeouts. It becomes a 3-hour commitment to watch an entire game. Super Bowl is practically a national holiday. We have to take the day off, basically, to see it, don't you? Superb. And by Randy, you are our advent calendar couple today, you glamorous pair, and Mr. and Mrs. Bairandi. Bon dia from a damp inside and out Bairada. And this is not showing any signs of letting up. How's your weather there? Has it been raining still every day for you?
Yeah, non-stop for the last few days. And it's going to rain until Saturday, I think.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's not cold though. It's like
It's
17
No,
very
it's really
mild,
not
very
cold.
mild.
It's 17 degrees, so it's not
Yeah.
cold. It's not cold, and it hasn't rained. At least it hasn't been torrential rain. It's just kind of spitting rain, so it's not too bad really. It's not
Yeah.
too bad.
Okay. All right.
One thing that I think a lot of people who are watching from overseas might not quite realize is just how damp it gets, because you just think it's a warm country, because you're right, it is warm, and if we go outside we don't really need coats, maybe just to shelter us from the rain. But like last night, we've got like wooden staircase, and as I was running my hand down the wood, which I'm sure Carl will do a FNAF comment about,
But hey,
last night it felt really slippy, as if he'd like got some baby oil or something,
oh my goodness,
and rubbed it all up and down the wood
stop it
really
now.
slowly, and my hand was just like sliding up and down it,
Oh my
and
God.
it was just damp. It's I swear to
It
God,
was just a damp.
literally the wood is getting really smooth to the touch.
Well, it will do if you keep rubbing it.
All of our
This should just be for your Patreon members right now. Surely, I mean,
That's right. Yeah.
this shouldn't be
OnlyFans.
free. This shouldn't be free.
Yeah, OnlyFans on GuMPer OnlyFans should be getting some premium content.
all of our cupboard doors are having this like dark staining where it's like absorbing all this water, and then we'll observe in the spring that the staining kind of retreats. It's quite the phenomenon if you're not used to it. Like if you're used to the UK. But anyway.
Get thee back staining. Yes. Look, some people understand me here, unlike you.
I'm like the reader's wife of mold.
That's very niche.
That might be my niche. There you go.
Yeah, well, there's a niche for everyone, right? That's the best part.
She's getting the vinegar out. She's getting the vinegar out.
Oh.
Yes. FAB, Carl. This is it. That's how the countdown we should have in the morning. 5, 4, 3. Thunderbirds are go. You remember that, don't you?
I just remember the sound of it. It's been used in loads of modern-ish
Yes,
sound
it was
clips.
in mega mixes of the 80s as
yes,
well.
Yes, it was. And I do remember the 80s.
Scarlet, indestructible man. Now, what's this here? Inish and Joao are saying Kuya! I don't know if I pronounced that right. And is
this a football ref?
Or are they abusing us in some
either or? Who knows? Let's just go with it. It's not something that the YouTube overlords will ban you for.
Jim likes a bit of Clorox on his mold.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Jim's enjoying it in the
You know what?
this morning.
I tell you what, it is worth having a few cheap bottles of mouthwash.
Where's she going now?
Wow.
It's worth having a few cheap bottles, because if you need a cheap anesthetic or antiseptic at some point, it does the trick.
Okay.
It's got so much. It's got so many chemicals in.
I've only got man flu.
Okay.
Do I need anesthetic for it?
No. I mean, like you think that mouthwash is just used for mouths, but in like if we were prepping, like it's top on the list of.
Oh, if you had like any mouth ulcers or anything in your okay, so what you mean? It's good for that.
No, if you get any like cuts and things, and you haven't got any actual
gunshot wound to the gut, like Michael was talking about earlier. Don't worry about that. You don't need to spend $2,000 on a taxi. Just put some
mouthwash, mate. That would be.
I tell you what, if you go to any prepping lists, I think like must-have things. It's high up there, because it's got
Listerine.
It's got tons and tons of antibacterials and also alcohol in.
And you can drink it, can't you? If you're, you know, these prepper
You've got
scenarios.
Bad breath, you can drink it.
You know these prepper scenarios where people are like eating rice and beans for the last 3 weeks of existence on the earth. You're going to be wanting to neck that mouthwash straight out the bottle, aren't you? I'm just going down to the bunker to get some more kidney beans out. Excuse me. And while you're there in the bunker,
I did not get that cultural reference at all. I don't know if you did. I had no idea what you meant by
kidney beans or me coughing. Arsenal. You're down in the bunker getting the. And no, that's not a euphemism, Michael. I don't know what you mean. Literally in your prepper bunker, getting your tins of kidney beans and lentils and rice and stuff and pasta, dried food for the apocalypse. And you see a bottle of Listerine there, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is on, man! Party time!" I'm drinking. Did you find the Listerine? Nope, I couldn't find it at all. And you've necked the whole lot just to drown your sorrows a little bit. Anyway, hopefully it doesn't come to that.
I think what he's trying to say is, Carl's idea of like a living hell would be having to eat beans and rice for the rest of his life.
Well, for the last 3 weeks of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
He'd rather finish himself off.
With Listerine. Shower and dance naked in the rain whilst drinking Listerine.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Okay, this has gone off on a funny
It has
track,
gone off on a
and it
funny
was my fault.
We will be
wasn't it?
talking about these sorts of matters with Mamabear in just a moment.
Yeah.
We need to say
Yeah, I don't know. We're
thank
going to
you
be talking
Michael.
about assisting our own suicide, but
well, you never know, do you? We
knows?
go places other shows, live streams do not dare to go. As clearly you've done.
Absolutely.
Baby oiling the wood already this morning. In Northern Ireland, we had a great Radio Ulster presenter called Jerry Anderson. R.I.P. He was one of the most funniest, wittiest guys. The Jerry Anderson you're talking of was a 60s maker of children's TV shows. Absolutely right. Thank you very much for that. Lord Gilchrist is here. Michael's about to exit stage left. We thought we were seeing you for the last time, not in that Armageddon apocalyptic way, but because it was the end of the year and you had your last appearance. But I think you're going to be back next week for a cameo again, Michael, with some World Cup reportage.
Well, I tell you what, if Argentina win tonight and we get to the final on Sunday, I'll do a cheeky preview with you this week.
Oh, there you go. All right, fantastic.
And I'll educate people a bit about Argentina. They don't know much, and I'll tell people where to get good Argentine food in Lisbon, and we'll do a whole Argentine theme.
Excellent.
So
there you go.
Would your mum want to teach
Top
us a nice recipe or something?
Possibly, I can ask her to share something that I can share with you. Definitely.
Wow. Great stuff. Have a great day, friends.
Have a lovely time.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you both. Enjoyed the tete-a-tete with the two of you on screen. As always, it's been fantastic. And Carl, hope you get better soon, mate.
Yeah, please don't worry about me, Michael. Save yourself.
I'm concerned, okay. But I hope you get better soon, mate. All right?
Okay, mate. All right, all the best. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ah, very good. Let's bring Mamabear. Let's keep that applause going. Woo! Sorry to keep you waiting. Lovely to see you this morning. How are you? I think in a new place since we last saw you.
Yes, this is my tiny home.
Oh, bless you. Oh, you were on the land, I think, last time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was living in the geodome while I was building the house, and now I've built my house, so I now have my house.
Mrs. You've not met before, have you?
No, hello. It's nice to meet you.
Mamabear meet Mrs. M, and Mrs. M meet Mamabear here. And last time you were in a field, and there was a jauntily placed but unconnected washing machine behind you.
That's like our backyard.
It's just that's like our front garden with the fridges and the washing machines on it.
We do have a washing machine in our back garden from where it blew up recently.
It's actually in the garage now.
Anyway,
yes.
Geodesic dome. What was that like? I mean, that's always been on my wish list.
Well, come and spend the night. Bring the kids and bring Carl and enjoy it.
Fantastic.
Night thing. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's like being in a womb. It's beautiful. It's just snuggly and cozy and just so peaceful and close to nature. It's just beautiful. You know, I was used to being in a van, but when I've moved into the dome, it was just so much more closer to nature, but with more room to walk about. You know, in the van there was like a little narrow passageway, and now I'm out of the dome. I can even stretch my hands above my head and everything in here. You know, brush my hair without taking out a bamboo pole. You know,
it must be so nice.
Yes,
we do need like space to be able to stretch, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And to get dressed and stuff, you know, it's hard because like van life teach you how to be a contortionist. You like that on top of the bed, right?
So that's
when there's more than two of you in there.
Oh goodness. Remember those days in the camper van with two kids?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
We had that little bit up top, didn't we? Could put the kids up there for a bit and have a little bit more room to stretch out in the downstairs.
Yeah, but I mean, what I noticed with van life is the first person to fall asleep gets the best sleeping position. And old Muggins here, who was always like nursing a baby, would be the last one to fall asleep. And I'd have to contort myself.
With your face squashed against the window.
So I'd be contorted. Everyone else is like Life of Riley, like sleeping like starfishes.
Yeah,
starfish. Yeah, well
how
is it in your new place?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you I mean, not only talking about death and dying here in Portugal, which is where we dare to go when we see you once a month, and also we have a webinar coming up in the new year where we're really going to go into it, which is the launch of our online death cafe, which sounds pretty grisly, doesn't it? But actually, it's not so bad. These things are arguably
the chance to talk, like you say, about assisted suicide or assisted dying, things like that, because any questions that anyone's got, anything they're thinking about, some places in Europe it's legal. In Portugal it isn't yet. In the UK they've just pulled it into Parliament and they've just took it to the next level to look at things again. So it's really important to keep up to date with things, and if it's something you want to support, throw your energy into it. Really support the cause to help people to die with dignity. Because that's more important. So living and dying with dignity is something that the medical profession try to do, but they forget to see us as people, and they see us as numbers and things, and or just a patient, but they don't have that relationship. Now doulas like myself, they are able to see you as a person and help advocate from a place of love, where other people just aren't able to do that because they've got that separateness. So it's seeing meeting and seeing people as souls and helping them to grow in whichever way they need to get back to health, you know, or to pass.
When did that happen, do you think, actually, before we move on and before I forget, there we go, Monday 9th of January. That's our third webinar in a series of Move to Portugal 2023 webinars, first of which we did last night, if you want to catch that on the replay. And it's called A Matter of Life and Death in Portugal. So, yeah, Monday 9th at 7:30. And then thereafter, every month, we will do that evening slot for people to talk about these issues practically, realistically, and in a supported way with Mamabear here. In that position of support and help for people and insight. But interestingly, I understand this, you know, since medicine and so much of life became industrialized, it's the same in education, isn't it? People do, because of the scale, people do tend to be treated like numbers. But perhaps there was a time when people were cared for and their soul and their human side was.
There's many cultures you can still see it happening today. India is quite good at it. They do, you know, they do look at people as souls in places, countries like India, some of the old tribal places where tribal and communities still happen, like in the Amazon, a lot of the true permaculture places where permaculture communities are. I mean, this is living permaculture. People don't realize it, but I am living a permaculture thing. It's a lifestyle. It's creating a sustainable culture, a lifestyle where we can all live in balance. So it's all about the medicine. It's about bringing back balance. It's about equality and fairness for all life, for the highest good, not just for me. You know, it's not about ego. And people might not like to associate it with permaculture, but permaculture is about earth care, it's about fair share, and it's about people care. That's the three principles there. And what we're doing is we're taking care of everyone, no matter their age or abilities, and finding them a place within a community where their skills matter. So it doesn't matter how old or young you are, you have a place. You've got somewhere to go. Doesn't matter how say disabled you may be categorized by whatever, you've still got so many skills, you know. So you're meeting someone as a soul to soul, and everyone's got something they can gift to the world through their presence. So that's what it's about. That's how important it is. And in like the Native American Indian cultures, you know, indigenous Americans, they're the people that they're still, some of the cultures, they're still teaching it now. They're helping people in the tribe. They bring the children up to be children in their childhood, and then help them gradually enter adulthood. And as they're ready, not necessarily through age, but they're judging each person as an individual. So they get to a certain stage in their life and they go, wow, you're now time to go walkabout, say, with the Aboriginals in Australia, or it's that time now. Hold on, we've got a bear. Come on now.
Come on, mum's on the telly. Mum's on the TV.
Yeah, and it's important to notice these times. Girls and their periods and things, we try and ignore it, where these tribes are like, wow, you're entering womanhood. This is your next stage. This is how we can honor you and your body, and this is how you can learn to honor your body too. And we all get up and we grow and evolve through this, and we can return to that. We've not been that. It's not been that separate. We've not been that separate from that for a very long time.
What happened to us? What happened to us? Because you were talking there about soul-to-soul connection, and we've been listening to Access Consciousness teachers, message sharers, Dane here and Gary Douglas, right? In a very brilliant way, reintroducing people to energetic connection, which I think is, the greater part of us, really, until we kind of propagandized and educated us out of it. And the soul connection, the soul.
Want to take him outside?
That is a formidable bark, isn't it? How big is your dog?
Yeah, but I mean, maybe it'd be better if he was on the bed, but the bed's like nearly 5 foot up, and I can't lift him half a foot, let alone.
Are you on a tiny home platform? Are you a sleeping platform?
Yeah, I am.
Lovely on the mezzanine there, fantastic. No, just saying, it's interesting what's happened to us, that we have just started to relate to ourselves and each other through this tiny bandwidth of energy. And you were saying, soul to soul gift connection, that could be that's so possible. It happens anyway, doesn't it? It's just we don't notice it necessarily. And how do we connect with each other? Through bloody CVs. Here's my soul's gift. It's all there on my CV.
Yeah.
It's what a funny time we're living in.
Well, energetically, you can read a CV because you just put your hand over it and you feel into your intuition. So the trick is to tune into our intuition so we can really bring ourselves back to center and feel our way forward and through life. We can do.
It's kicking off.
They're playing. Like, I've got two rescues. I don't know if you know anyone that knows. I rescued a German Shepherd. I just couldn't leave her in the mess she was, and I took her, and I was like, what am I doing? I've got a German Shepherd now, and I'd already committed to having the Sierra Estrella from what was it, Near Star Animal Mountain Rescue, and it was like, okay, so then it was introducing the 3, but they're learning to be dogs again. Like Batty here, little Batty's being well behaved.
Oh,
say
look
hi
at that smile. Smile there. Hello, Batty. Fantastic.
And Batty was kept on a chain, like tiny little Batty kept on the chain all his life, and he came to live with me, and he's learned how to be a dog and play and be himself, like us humans need to do, And these two have had to learn to play. Elsa had spent 7 years on a chain. Bear had spent all his life, I don't know how long, in a very small enclosure. And now they're learning to play. They run about, they bark, they roll about. Batty tries his best to join in, but he does get crushed on occasion and come over.
It's interesting. Look, he's just checking the situation out, but it's maybe better to sit on mummy's lap. We've got a couple of comments. And YouTube, would you honest, if I've pronounced that correct, that's the first thing we're going to do is find out how to pronounce Ewout's name properly. We do it for our beloved cats and dogs. This was talking about assisted dying, wasn't it? And we don't let them suffer. I need to talk this through. I'm very uncomfortable about assisted dying.
I've been following some of the sort of like stories about what's happening in Canada. Like, obviously, there's a big, there's a lot of news about how they're bringing in assisted suicide, and I'd like to see a lot more discussion. And I'm wondering who's making the decisions, because I think
it should be your own, right?
Well, yeah, it should be your own. And one of the things I'm a little what I've got going off, like my intuition, my spidey senses are just tingling a little bit, because I suspect as these new rules are brought in, that assisted suicide is okay, and that it's that in fact we're going to support it, that people's lives can be ended, that at some point there will be this kind of merit system, that like when we see that you're not like fulfilling any purpose, or that you're costing us more to like keep you alive, then we'll let you go.
This is very dark, Mrs.
Which is actually like
Mrs. In the UK, it's like they did it with my granddad. Now they don't call it that, and they don't publicize that, but they just starve you, and they let you go. They cut. Well, no, they call it. Oh, you know, he's towards the end of his life, so we'll just take away the food and water and just wet the lips, and you know, that's just one way to kill someone off, basically, without doing it legally, and they wouldn't tell you it's that. They're just letting them die, you know, and it's still cruel, and it doesn't need to be that way. You know what I mean? There's lots of, and I could talk for quite a bit on assisted dying and stuff. And when we call it assisted suicide, it's people have a lot of connections, a lot of memories. There's a lot of energy that is dense, that people struggle with when you mention the word suicide. And we all know someone or know of someone who's chosen to check out early, you know. And it's a big thing. It's a big taboo that people don't like talking about, and it's the rate at this time of year. You know what I mean? I've been a Samaritan since 2014. I spent time helping people on the railways who were going to the railways to take their own lives, and I used to talk to them and meet them on the track side and talk to them and sit with them and help them sort out the shit basically there and then, and be able to find a way forward so that it would reduce the deaths on the railway, and it would also help them to, you know, and it'd save a hell of a lot of money for things like Network Rail. And it ended up taking, because the thing is, people don't realize when someone takes their life, they don't realize how it affects the train drivers, how it affects the staff, how it affects everyone who's cleaning up afterwards, you know. But the thing is with suicides, it's because people feel that they're alone. They feel like there's no way out. So when it comes to suicide, we need to stop the stigma, break that, so people know it's okay to talk, so people know that it's okay to reach out for whoever, to me, to whoever you need to talk, just to get it out. When it comes to assisted dying, it's totally different. Now, although there is a grey area where you have people who want to take their lives because they've suffered with mental illness for a very long time and they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, especially with the British NHS the way that it is, you know, they're not able to access the proper health care that they need, so they're not able to get the help early enough to make a big difference. And by the time they get in there, you know, most people have tried taking their lives many times. Now, you've also got the other people who have got serious illness. So you've got heart disease, you've got stroke, you've got cancers. There's many different things that are really debilitating illnesses. When you've got something like that they're living with and they're feeling trapped, as illnesses do make you feel, you know, then and when you're not feeling well, you're feeling low, you're feeling under the weather. That's the kind of thing that when you have it day in, day out, and there isn't any break, and you're not sleeping right, and it's months, it's years of suffering. That's the other kind of assisted dying. So people who've got enough money go to, like, is it? Oh, I've forgotten the word. Youth.
Veritas, no, something TAS.
Well, I mean, like something TAS, isn't it? I should know that. And it's in, is it not Sweden? Is it? There's a couple of countries in Europe that I usually know off the top of my head. So it's obviously not important or fully relevant for what we're talking about. But there are different places and different countries you can go. Where they'll help you, and you just go to a room and you can choose your music, set the scene, and choose to pass at that point. So that's a different kind of assisted dying. And then you do have assisted suicide, but that is something that isn't really legal, that is very hairy, ground where people do help you in your home to take your life.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that, because people are risking a hell of a lot, and it shouldn't even need to be like that. You know, if the right people get in there at the right time, we're able to provide the right quality of care to at least maintain a decent standard quality of life, to be able to do what's needed, palliative care, before it comes to going into a hospice or moving to wherever, to take that final step.
Thank you for that. Let me pause you there. So, this is quite the breakfast show this morning, isn't it? And of course, with our new webinar series once a month, with the online death cafe that Em will be hosting and holding, we'll have space to talk in a more leisurely way, and because we want to bring Ute on this morning as well. But just a couple more comments before we do that. This is beautiful. Thank you very much, Owen. Off for a walk in the rain in memory of my mum. She'd love the light, warm showers. 5 years gone, but forever in my heart. Have a beautiful day, everyone. What a lovely way to honour your mum. James talking about treating people rather than treating symptoms and diseases is perhaps what we might return to. And he goes on to say, in US hospices, they refer to intentional morphine overdose at the very end as pain management. It's very interesting, isn't it? The euphemisms, and it's what we've got to, I suppose, as a culture. Hopelessness is a major red flag for suicidation, says James. Not heard that before. Deagle with a simple heart and prayer. Our birth, says Gary, affects everyone around us as much as our passing. We're part of an intricate life that leaves behind our physical legacy in what we do and those we leave behind. Our life is inclusive. Dignitas was the name, wasn't it?
That's
and
it.
Soylent Green is another. Can we hold on, please? Let me pause you there, because we're going to keep talking, and Ute's going to be sat there trying to join us, and it won't have been possible. So nice big round of applause.
I like what Jean's just said.
Okay, what Soylent Green?
Yeah.
Good morning to you, Ute. Have I said that correctly? Let me just start there.
That's all right.
Not at all.
It's one of the biggest problems being a foreign import. Everyone gets my name wrong. I don't care. You can call me Hey You, but it is pronounced Ewout.
No way. I would never have guessed that. Ewout. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ewout. Where does that name come from?
It's exactly as it's written. It's exactly as written if you're Dutch.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Ewout.
Yes. Okay, so well, thank you for being here. We had a little bit of a to and fro yesterday morning, didn't we? And trying to put you in a pigeonhole. For the sake of, I'm introducing a guest here. I need to let everybody know who you are. And you're a Renaissance person, I think, with many skills and gifts and insights. So it was a bit difficult, but lovely to have you this morning. I know you've worked in education and in the charity sector, and you have. I mean, the main reason I think you're here this morning is because you have what might be called an expansive, transcendent view of the very subject we're talking about. Is that fair?
I suppose, yeah, certainly about death and life and everything. Yeah, certainly. Can I make a comment about the?
Please do. Yeah, I can see you've been waiting there a long time, so I imagine you've got some catching up to do with us this morning.
Well, yeah, I hadn't really expected to talk about that, and it's not something I am convinced about. I have a strong opinion about. I just don't know. It's a puzzle, but I would like to point out that it's the other aspect of assisted living, and it's assisted living where it becomes clear in my mind, where someone can't really live without being wired up to so many machines. And the extreme, of course, is a locked-in syndrome, and why someone should be kept alive in locked-in syndrome if they want to die. It seems pointless.
Is that in relation to what I was saying about in Canada? You know, my fear, my secret spidey sense fear that, you know, it might be used as a tool to take the lives of people who we view as not having a worthwhile life.
Well, that's always a danger, but I still think, you know, I don't feel a lot of people will have a question about it when someone is seriously wired up, whether it's the right thing or not. I think the majority of people will probably agree to it. My personal view, I just don't know. I think about this, and if no one wants to be in pain and discomfort. It's slightly different, as Em pointed out already, whether it's emotional, mental pain or physical pain. It's slightly different. my view with everything is you have to make an informed decision. But I would say to make an informed decision, you have to also consider the area that we know very little about, which is the kind of spiritual aspect. You know, if you believe in karma or anything like that, you might feel it's wrong for someone to end their life. They need to continue their karma. But then again, I would say look at people being kept alive artificially. Is that the right thing? Are we overruling karma there? So
yeah, I love what you're saying there. Actually, I mean, one of the things that we both like about Portugal is how you see old people sat by the side of the road, maybe wrapped up, you know. So like, rather than keeping old people in homes, obviously a lot of people are doing care for their elderly at home, you know, and you know, they give people some fresh air, and then they go in at some point, and people are still part of the community. You know, people walk past them and say hello, and you know, they are taking part. I remember the days when people actually died at home, you know, and things have become increasingly medicalized, and people might actually have the chance to die sooner if they're maybe cared for at home or looked after or allowed to be ill. Because one of the things that I've noticed is like, doctors don't want to kill people, and so they have to use, like what you were saying, Mamabear, euphemisms like pain management to be able to end their lives, because
they sign a thing, don't they? Doctors sign this thing, and it says that they will fight to and work to preserve life always. So no matter what, they're always, the aim is to preserve life, which is so important. Like I always say, it's important to get your shit together now, while we're alive, while we're conscious, while we're able, and put it down, get it written down into our records, either DNR or get a living will. So if something should happen to me today, this is what I want to happen, depending on the severity of what happens. So if need be, will I need to have the machine turned off? What kind of quality of life will I have? And these things, so dogs, I love them though. I won't change it.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it was just, I was just saying that it's important. No, I was saying, but now my head's gone. Go on.
I want to bring Ewout into this, because it'd be lovely to know a bit more about you and how you've come to the decision to. I think what I was able to glean yesterday was that you are, and maybe this is why you know is you are in the sort of consciousness of the death cafe culture, and it's one thing that you want to start up in the UK, right? Ewout, that's where you live, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And what's led you to that? What's your personal journey here that has you thinking to yourself, I think the death cafe culture idea, opportunity for people is important. So what led you to that point?
Lots of things. So first of all, I don't know because I'm Dutch, but I don't really deal well with taboos, and I feel everything should be spoken about, whether it's sex or death or whatever.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then I suppose I've been thinking about this because I thought this was what you would ask, and I suppose most things in my life, strangely enough, that have affected me deeply, I can take back to hearing loads of fairy tales when I was a child. And you know, there's on the one hand, there's death stories and myths of various death, and even death as a character in several stories. But also there's this thing which I loved as a child, and I still love and sort of believe in, living happily ever after. And I take that to mean ever after, even beyond death. And so that's kind of a slight background. And then I had a sort of near-death experience, and I've been close to death a few times. And going back to my teens, I worked in a hospital. I had a terrible experience where I on holiday, and this chap came cycling down a hill, and he must have had a hemorrhage or something, and he crashed his bike, and blood was pouring out of his mouth and everywhere. He was clearly dying, or was seriously ill, and I ran away. It was actually okay because there were loads of people who came, but I lived with that for ages, that I actually couldn't bring myself to help this man. And I thought, how do I get over this? So the first thing I did was I went to the local hospital and I said, I want to work in your goriest place. I need to get over this.
Wow.
So they had a specialist burns unit. They put me in the burns unit.
Oh gosh.
Because people were all naked. It was all sterilized air, and so all the serious burns, everything was visible. And also there were, people did die, and I was only an orderly. I don't know if they still exist. They don't really exist anymore, I don't think. An orderly, which was a general dog's body, and I used to have to deal with people who died, help wrap them up and take them to the mortuary and stuff like that. But all that just fired my interest, and then I had several of my relatives dying, as you do, but I was lucky to be present with quite a few of them, and I realized actually how amazing it was. And then when my mother died, which was probably about 12 years ago or so, she took a long time to die. I was away for work, and my daughter phoned me and said, I think she's dying, you ought to come back. I drove back quite a long way, and she was clearly dying, but it took her 5 days. It took her 5 days, and partly through mischief, I think, because she had a zany sense of humor, which is where I got it from. I mean, we thought she'd die, and then she'd open her eyes, she'd say, yeah. Ha ha, you thought I'd gone, I'm still here.
No way.
Yeah.
I love that.
But my eldest daughter and I spent the entire time by her bed, day and night, and we both felt when it was over, we both said, it's like labor in reverse. It's like birth.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually, when you were saying that.
It's the opposite. It's just a transition out of life, like the other ones transition into life. And you may or may not believe that there's something before life and something after life, but it's the same anyway. So it's a transition. If you believe nothing happens, that's fine too. But then it's nothing. And the trouble is when actually you believe, it's more challenging for people when they are brought up to believe in hell and things like that. Very few people I've spoken to ever say, oh, I'm looking forward to going to heaven. They don't. They actually say, I'm really frightened because I've done bad things in my life, and what's going to happen to me. And that's the other one of my interests, is how to help people overcome fear. And that's really a strong motivating force in my interest in the death cafes. And when I heard about the death cafes many years ago, I read it when I used to read the Sunday paper still, I thought, wow, yes, this is so right. People should just talk about these things. And even just that, even talking about it. And now as part of preparing to set one up, which will probably happen in January, end of January, I've been taking part in other ones, not as local, but further afield. And it's just quite amazing. It's life-changing. Almost every conversation is life-changing. And what it really does is it improves your relationship to life. And there are some people there who are terminally ill or who are very elderly, but there are also younger people there who just have this worry, because it's the only thing we know that we're definitely going to die. It's the only thing we know for sure. And the other thing that's marvelous about death is that it's totally fair. We're all treated equally. We all die. It's not a different death for one person or another. We die.
Wow.
Anyway, that's got a little bit of why.
No, it's spot on. Absolutely spot on. This is what this, we're daring to have this conversation. I think it is a bit unusual, and we will continue on a Monday evening, I think. it's quite new to me. But go on, Mrs. M,
Eva, I'm so pleased that you mentioned like the coming into life as well as the leaving life, because when we were talking about the idea of assisted dying or assisted suicide, and you know, me mentioning my like fears about how those laws could be messed around with, I think the same applies in terms of birthing, and every country has its own distinct laws about abortion and the rights of incarnating souls or spirits or babies in mummies' tummies and stuff. And I think it's the sanctity of life issues are fascinating, and who knows if we'll ever get them right. But I think it has to start with a conversation. It really, really, truly does. And I know when I've been in the birthing situation, you know, giving birth, there is this moment where I feel like I am about to die, and I've said each time, I think I'm going to die, and that is like immediately before the baby's head crowns and then the baby comes forward, because it is also like a death. You know, your life changes when you give birth, and then there's this new creation in front of you.
And guess what? About we had a Dutch midwife.
Oh, she's amazing.
In that situation,
yeah.
she's fantastic. She
still is fantastic.
celebrates a birth with a cigar. Normally the dad, right, might have a cigar. She has a cigar as well. So
yeah, we bought her a beautiful
fat
cigar before I gave birth.
You said, didn't you? I think I'm going to die. And she said,
not a joint, a cigar.
A cigar.
Yeah.
And Louise is saying, I think I'm going to die. I can't do this, or something like that. And she said, who's saying this? And I thought, wow. It was a sort of totally transcendent moment. Like, who or what is saying that? It's like this phrase we've been using a lot, isn't it? You know, who does this belong to? Who does that thought belong to? And it completely well, it's easy for me to say, sat in there in my Speedos in the birthing pool, but
you weren't anywhere near me.
It seemed to change the atmosphere, didn't it? Her Dutch
Speedos, were you?
I can't remember now. Nobody should have to have that thought.
No,
anyway.
Actually, and I think this relates to maybe how people pass away as well. Just as the baby came out, she said, I'm not going to say anything for quite some time, because it's really important that that baby comes through, and that the first sounds that they hear are your voices. And so, like, you know, obviously when you're in a hospital and stuff, it's very different. There's all this kind of background chatter and whatnot.
Well, Em said this, haven't you, about the room, the death room, and the passing. You know, people can get a bit clucky, can't they? What the survivors and all the, you know,
it's remembering and honouring the person. You know, this transition, this amazing moment of transition that person's going through. We need to honour them in that and allow them to express and be in that moment the way however it's appearing, you know. And it'd be nice to allow them the noise or the quiet that they need to have comfort in those last moments.
Yes.
You know,
I heard
sorry.
Go on, Ewout.
Well, you know, it's really. I mean, I loved you using the word incarnating. I really connect to that, incarnating and excarnating, the beginning and end of life. But the birth, to me, my watching, particularly my mother, my mother, my grandmother, my sister, watching death, watching the dying process, and the birth process of my children. Unfortunately, I missed one of them, but the other two have been the most amazing things. And there's a similarity. There's a kind of cosmic, almost, dare I say it. There's a kind of like a light, like you're suddenly connected to everything, and but at both ends, you know. When at birth, if you're lucky enough to have you're not a troubled birth, then it may be harder to be aware of it. And then, you know, I spent a lot of time researching the death process, and there's some fascinating people, doctors and psychiatrists, and the most interesting people to talk about death are the hospice nurses. They are fascinating. And what these people report is how often, as people die, as they're part of their final dying process, how often they see, usually the relatives who've died, they actually see them, and that's not, it's a very common thing. And I feel the same with birth almost. I mean, I don't know how far I believe in angels or whatever, but there's a feeling of magnitude and light, as if there's other people helping. I just got to tell you a quick little personal story. When my middle daughter was born, and we have this amazing midwife. I mean, midwives are amazing people,
aren't they? Just
absolutely amazing people. Well, she was a student midwife. She wasn't even a proper midwife yet, and she was just absolutely amazing. We were in a kind of cottage hospital. They left us alone, and she just popped in and checked from time to time, and she was just lovely. She had this lovely movement, ethos around her, and afterwards, I said to her, "Wow, you're amazing. What's your name?" And she was Italian Canadian, and she said, "My name is Lucia d'Amore, light of love." I thought, "Is that your real name?" She said, "Yeah." I mean, that's just amazing.
Yes.
Little anecdote.
Well, you know, I love what you're saying there, because I spent about 9 months around what they called a respite center. There was a neighbor of mine, had no relatives, and I didn't have kids then, and so I visited him every day. And on the day that he passed, I mean, I've seen spirit since childhood, so I was really sort of like intensely sort of experiencing what he was going through. You know, I was by his side anyway, and I noticed like a surge of energy coming out of him quite a few times to sort of explore the idea of what it's like to be outside of his body, if that makes sense. I experienced him coming out and then coming back in. I experienced this energy of him being younger than he was in his body. And I also experienced lots of other beings or energy in the room that were around him. And he was really, really comfortable. And the other thing I noticed was, like, you know, he was obviously like in the process of dying of cancer. And for many hours there was nothing, you know, it was just like, you know, he was not conscious of anything, and I was just talking to him softly. And then all of a sudden there is that moment, you know, that can happen in films that you see, where somebody suddenly opens their eyes and comes up and moves and says the last word. And there was that moment. And then the nurses said, "Clear off. He's trying to die."
Really?
Just go
Do
home.
you mind? We're trying to do our job.
Yeah,
here.
they said, "Look, he's been trying to die for a long time. You
You're
know,
not helping.
We thought he needed company, but maybe you should go." And by the time I'd got home and got into bed, I went into a really deep dream, and then I woke up and heard, like, just woke up suddenly, turned my light on, the light bulb burst, and I heard in my head, "Out like a light." And moments later, they phoned and said he'd gone. So I sometimes.
Oh God, I could talk to you all day. I love everything you say. I just feel so in tune with you. It's amazing. I just again got to tell you. So there's a name for that. I forgot what it is now. For that moment where many people miraculously get extra energy and can do things they can't before the end of death. Even people with dementia suddenly can be lucid. But just in relation to what you said, when my mother died, my mother had been a bit like a mother to my daughter as well, because my ex-wife emigrated and I had custody, and my mother kind of took on a bit of a maternal role, and they were very close. And as I said, it took 5 days for her to die, and I suddenly thought, what is stopping her? Why is she taking so long? And I suddenly thought, it's about Tamara, my daughter. She's worried she's not going to be okay. So I took Tamara outside. I said, "Look, you must tell her that you're okay. Go and talk to her and say everything's okay." She went in and told her that, and within 10 minutes she'd gone. Quite amazing.
Yes.
And the other amazing thing was, as she died, I mean, she'd been for that day, the whole process of death, you know, she'd lost any control of her body. She couldn't move anymore. Her eyes, her beautiful blue eyes, were kind of covered over with a white film, and she couldn't see anymore. And at the moment of death, she miraculous. I thought it was a miracle, but I've discovered now it happens quite often. Miraculous. She sat up. Someone who hadn't been able to move. She sat up. She opened her eyes, looked me straight in the eyes, waved, and died.
Wow.
It was quite incredible. And I thought it was incredible, but it's not uncommon. I thought it was just me and my mum, but it wasn't. It's not uncommon.
A miracle nonetheless, about for sure. Isn't that beautiful?
So special.
Yeah. So, and you know, the other aspect that you mentioned, spirit and stuff, you know, I never know how to talk about these, whether one can talk about these things or not, but
you're welcome, go ahead.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of experiences there as well, and I have a lot of, I had burnout twice in my life, and after my burnout, I had to take a year off work, and I suddenly realized I was a workaholic. I suddenly thought, now I need to focus, and I need to be a workaholic on myself. I need to work on my self-development. So I spent the luxury of spending a year, while I was lucky to be on full salary, to work on myself, to meditate, and it was quite amazing. That's just was a gift, such a gift. And then I started to have spiritual experiences. I had a near-death experience. But then more interestingly, years later, I had some, I think the word now is, but anyway, communication with dead people experiences. And when I have these things, I'm very, I like to be scientific about these things. I don't go, oh my God, oh, I can do this. No, not at all. I just look at it and I think, I could be making this up. It could be nonsense.
Yeah.
It could not. But let's just enjoy the experience and live with the experience, and that's all. I've talked about it more recently. I'll give you 2 examples where I had kind of proof, which is freaky. I had proof, sort of, that it was genuine. So I was amongst everything else, I was a part-time school inspector, and I was on holiday in Cornwall, and I got a message from one of my inspector colleagues. Oh, she's disappeared.
She let me just explain. We homeschool our kids here, about, and sometimes they, you've been trumped by childcare there, so I think you may approve of that. But I'll relay this to Louisa, and I'm sure she'll want to watch the replay as well.
Yeah. Okay. So a colleague messaged me. I can't remember whether she messaged or phoned, whatever, and said, an inspection colleague that I didn't know very well and didn't. We never actually been on the same team. She just messaged all of us and said, my mother's just died, so if you need to get hold of me, you need to use this number, because my sister and I will be at her house sorting all the stuff. That's all. That was the message. And then I can't remember exactly, it's a number of years ago now, whether it was that day or the next day, but I was meditating, and her mother, who I'd never met, didn't know, her mother came to me and said, first of all, the kind of usual thing, tell Deborah I'm okay. Yeah, fine. And then she said, the only thing is, I'm very worried about this container. This, oh, there she is, this container. It's kind of like a picnic basket. And I'm really worried about that. And then she disappeared. That's all she said.
Gave you the message, and that was it.
Yeah, so then I spoke to my wife and I said, what do I do with this? This is what happened to my meditation. What do I do with this? I can't ring Deborah up and say, I just spoke to your mum who died. Can I? She'll think I'm mad. And but maybe it's important though. So what do I do? And my wife said, are you ever worried about what anyone thinks about you? I said, no. No, I'll ring her then. So I phoned her up and I said, Deborah, you probably think I'm mad, but just hear me out. I don't care if you think I'm mad. Just hear me out. And that's all. Let me say this bit. So I told her, and she was absolutely silent. I said, you do think I'm mad, don't you? And she said, describe this container. I said, well, it's like a picnic basket. It's about, about this big. And then again, she was quiet. And she said, we have just found exactly what you described. A picnic basket under her bed, full of the most personal correspondence that we didn't know existed. We've just found it. and you've just described it. That was amazing. I thought, oh my God, there's something in this. And then
Yes.
I don't want to take up too much time. So the other one was my sister was terminally ill and lived in New Zealand and died about 2 years ago, I suppose. The beginning of COVID. We were quite close. She was a lot older than me. When I was a child, she was like an extra mum. She was 10 years older. And then later on in life, we suddenly discovered we had, without realizing it, for years, we'd had similar views, particularly on spiritual matters. I always thought she was a very middle-class woman, and I never talked to her about it for ages. And then suddenly we both opened our souls. Anyway, she had a brain tumor. She was dying for quite a long time, and she knew she was going to die. And we used to speak on video call every evening for like 3 or 4 hours sometimes. We used to talk about death. This is key to my views as well. We used to talk about death a lot. She was not frightened about it. She was perfectly okay about it. And we'd research things and compare notes and say, you know, we found this doctor said that, and these nurses said that, and they've that. No, we kind of just talk about it. And she said to me, when I'm gone, I'll be in touch. And we spoke every night. And even when she died, as she was dying, my nephew held his mobile phone over her, and I kind of communicated with her when she couldn't even speak anymore. It was special.
Wow.
Anyway, then in my meditations, I used to see her, not immediately, a little while after she died, maybe a week or so, or 10 days, she used to come. And again, I used to see around her all our relatives who had died before. I could see them and I could identify them. And there was one person I couldn't identify. He was a short man, quite dark-skinned, and I didn't know who he was. So I thought, okay. I phoned my older brother, who was, who grew up with my sister before I was even born, kind of thing. And I said, there's this guy. Do you know anyone who's kind of short, dark, who knows our sister? No. I asked her son. I said, is there anyone in New Zealand? And I described it. No. And then somebody said to me, one of my friends said, I shared this with, why don't you ask your sister who it is? And I said, oh yeah, it's a good. Why didn't I think of that? So next time in meditation, and when I connected with her, I said, who's that guy? And she said, that's Olaf. That's all she said. I didn't know who Olaf was. So I went back again, phoned my brother, and I said, did you ever know anyone called Olaf? And he said, oh God, yes. Olaf was, I think he was my mother's young cousin. And I have Indonesian blood, like many Dutch people. And he was quite Indonesian, so he's quite dark. He was quite short. And when my brother and sister were young, they really loved this guy because he was young and cool. He wasn't like the older generation, and they loved this guy. And he died really young, before I was born, and I didn't know he existed.
Amazing.
I mean, this is,
and you couldn't have known. You just couldn't have known that, could you?
No.
But I think you're leaning against an open door here. About it's lovely to hear these recollections, to give us a sense of maybe what we've forgotten or what we aren't generally open to in our funny world that we live in, and where it's at the moment. So thank you for being here and doing that this morning. We're coming towards the end of the show, but I think the general vibe is that how important it is to talk about these things. How freeing, and this is what the message we always seem to have, isn't it? And by the end of these gatherings that we have, is that by talking about death, our lives are enriched, our living life is enriched by this conversation. If I could go to a few of the comments that you've quietened the audience about.
Sorry.
People have got no, it's not a problem. It's just very interesting. Catherine, Kate, our friend Kate, is here. Bon dia todos, who I think will be fascinated by the conversation this morning. Gary says Gary always comes to these Death Cafe discussions. Thank you, Gary, for being here. These days we're forced into positions of opposition all too frequently. Well, it's a polar time, isn't it? To coin a phrase, what we do in life echoes in eternity. After death, our loved ones try to focus on the better things we did. Understandably so, right? Although my dad would say, when I die, tell them I was a bastard, and then when they ask who said so, tell them I did. And he was like, don't sugarcoat my life. Tell him how it was. So that's how we did honor him. It became a catch-22, says Jean. Wanting to kill yourself is crazy, or it becomes a catch-22. Wanting to kill yourself is crazy. If you are crazy, you aren't in a proper state of mind to make such a decision. And this is the interesting thing. Probably one of the things we could pick up when we talk again in the new year. What is informed consent? I mean, humans aren't informed. We aren't informed, are we? Given all that you've said about what there is to life. How on earth can we make informed decisions when we are operating on this tiny bandwidth? But perhaps that's a conversation.
We need to remember that our perspective, so we're all individuals, and our personal life experiences of how we perceive the world, they make up our belief systems. So what we believe is crazy isn't what the other person believes is crazy, and we have to take ourselves back to what's individual and what's right for that person, because at the end of the day there is no wrong or right, there's just balance and imbalance. So it's when we bring things back into balance we can find truth.
Yeah, and honour that. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Ideal way. This is inevitable, isn't it? People do like to consider how they might go out with a bang here, by the sound of it. My ideal way to go out, says Gary, will be on a Viking boat full of explosive ordnance for disposal. He knows where to get that, as I think he was in the industry. It might be a tall order, but I'm a very practical man, and it seems a fitting end for me. Go out with a bang, I say. You're still alive at this point, Gary. My goodness, that's a high-risk strategy. Mark Twain, I was dead for billions and billions of years before I was alive, and it never bothered me. Mark Twain. Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. Shannon, our friend Shannon's here. I love that. Who does this belong to? What a powerful question to ask when in the throes of life and death, and certainly in between. I mean, the proposition here is that 90% of what we think and feel is not our own. That's a revolutionary thought, isn't it?
Well, one thing I would add, given that, we're doing this from Portugal and a lot of people that are listening are considering migrating, migration is a death in its own right, isn't it?
Yes.
It's death of one life and, the new start of another. And so, we should be talking about all aspects of what it means to be like wrapping things up.
Yes,
Yeah,
understanding the cycles.
applies.
Yeah, I guess part of this could be characterized, I suppose, as us returning to cyclical and rhythmic consciousness of life rather than these straight lines, which we seem to have confounded ourselves with. I was rather partial to the conception process, a very spiritual experience. Now, Portuguese, Lord Gilchrist is making a fanar joke there, but this is true, isn't it? I mean, I think orgasmic consciousness. Dying, there is a growing awareness of orgasmic birth.
They refer to it as a
little death.
Yes. Yeah, a little death.
Yeah. Yes. So why not? Could we not expand our, instead of it just being a damned good relief while thinking of England, this might be cosmic, as you said about earlier on. The orgasm itself might be a reference to the beginning and end of life. It's of course part of the creation of life, and we might think of it in a different way and raise our consciousness out of pornography into something a little bit more conscious and ennobling.
Adding to what Ewout was saying about how like his perception and mine as well, actually, is that spirit lives on. We felt the spirits of our children, like we felt the energy of our children wanting to come in. And, we told them, we said, we're ready for you. Come when you're ready.
I remember that date. Yes, I do.
The first one.
Yeah.
We felt the energy of them and we said, look, we're ready. Just come when you're ready. Like we're welcoming you. And and very soon after, baby number one arrived. So
Lord Gilchrist, his partner, is a midwife. Amen to that.
In fact, we've got a couple of midwife
We love
energies
midwives
here,
don't we?
haven't we?
Yeah.
Watching us today.
I had a house full last night of midwives. Lucky man. I have a friend in the UK who had a cardiac arrest earlier this year. He told me that it was an instant and simple death. Luckily, he was resuscitated, but he said that he would choose this again. My goodness, that's incredible. Strange. We have hopes for a new life coming into the world, even though we have no idea what the future holds. When a person dies, we hope that they're happy and peaceful, but we have no idea.
Yeah.
Similarly,
Yes.
Garvo, you excellent
Yeah.
man. And excellent, yes, from Kate, the skeptical healer. I enjoyed it. What was that, Kate, that you enjoyed there? I wonder.
I'm imagining the whole conversation.
Okay, good.
Like understanding, that there's a lot more behind the scenes.
Well, Kate knows that, doesn't she?
Yeah.
For sure. I'm not sure about the parallel of the whale, Andrew, but yeah, send them home with a lasting memory. Is that Jonah living in the whale, or is that a way to go, being eaten by a whale? I wonder. Sounds very dramatic and good for a laugh. The whale.
I think,
end.
aren't they talking about his Viking death?
Okay, all right. Well, okay, but yes, Gary. I was going to say I hope we're all invited, but you know what I mean. Ewout and sorry, Ewout or Ewout?
Ewout.
Ewout.
Not either of those. Ewout.
Ewout.
Okay, we'll get there in the end, and it is the end. It is the end of the show. I think we should have a little bit of a advent calendar palette cleanser at the end of the show. We have the joy of Christmas present to share with you. But last thoughts, if you will. It's been fantastic. Mama Bear, you said we need to get Ewout onto the show. I said okay, fine, and I'm so glad we did. What could you give us a parting shot, Ewout, and will you come back again sometime?
I'd love to come back. I've had a lovely time. A really interesting conversation. I know I spoke a lot, but really interesting. I feel kindred spirits. That was great. My thing is, I think it's important that we question everything and don't accept anything. I think that's the way to go through life. And as an educator, and I'm now turning much more towards home education because education is so crap. And I was actually in alternative education. I was in alternative education, so it was different. But I always wanted the children to leave school with questions, not with answers. And mainstream education is all about giving other people's answers. And I think we all should just have questions. That's the main thing.
Mm.
Yeah. I think you're leading against an open door with that sentiment.
Yes,
here.
and Ewout, actually, Mama Bear said something earlier about honouring the natural life stages of children. As they become adults. When they're individually doing that's why we make the decisions that we're making with our kids right now. So that
I'd love to talk to you more about all that.
Oh,
I'm sure you will.
You know what? I have my own channel where I do talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So
you can have
I'd love to have you both on my show as well.
No, get your own guests. Get your own guests. Eva, I agree with your sentiment about modern education, and this is coming from people in modern education. Isn't it interesting? My eldest daughter's a teacher, and she loves working with children and teaching children. She hates the system, I think, and this is what happens, isn't it, to people? Same in health as well. I think thinking skills need to be taught, to be taught. Thank you so much. Last word from you, Mama Bear. We're looking forward, of course, to talking to you in. Let me just get that date right. That'll be Monday, the 9th of January at 7:30. That is the launch, the inaugural session of the evening. A slightly better time for many people. Death Cafe online. Final words and thoughts from you, please.
It's because it's December, so please, I'm not just saying this because I'm on with Carl, and I know Carl feels the same. Don't suffer in silence. Over this season of the seasons things, Yule, Christmas, whatever you call it, whether you celebrate it or not, reach out. Whatever it is, whatever your troubles are, it's about living and dying. It's about connecting and being able to speak out and speak your truth or be heard. And right now it's the right time of year to really not feel heard or feel squashed or feel restricted. Please reach out to me or someone else who's a responsible person, and even if it's just to say hi, just to be in presence with someone. The greatest gift you can give this Christmas is your presence. So please don't be alone. reach out to us on Share and Care through Good Morning Portugal, or come over and send me a message to Mamabear McGowan on Facebook.
Well said.
We're
Well
sending
said.
lots of love. Okay.
Yeah, check in.
Don't be scared. There's no stupid questions. Keep questioning everything, and know that you don't have to feel stupid. It's so important that your truth is heard and that you feel heard and seen.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. And that's what the show's here for, and that's what this community's for. Just check in the mornings. We're here, and I'm the king of stupid questions. I'll lead the way with that. There are no stupid questions, as well. There are many, but I'm not afraid to ask them, and you'll be in good company here. Garvo, after death, you can be so blocked by grief that you aren't able to let the spirit of someone departed join you. That's an interesting view, one that I think we'll pick up in the new year. You need to let them come in, but in your own time. But they will let you know subtly. That's beautiful. Looks like I've got a finder's fee coming my way. Nice one, Stephen. I like what you're thinking there. Live every day as if it was your last. You're a long time dead. And thank you, Lord Gilchrist, for that. Drive life like you stole it. And do I drive it? Yeah, like a maniac. So we have a few upbeat things to share, because it's important to live life as well, isn't it? For sure, and that's the conversation I think we've had today. Is a good death is a good life, perhaps. This scene in Belfast, Portuguese coffee in Belfast in front of a roaring fire. The simple things in life, isn't that beautiful? It's certainly put my predicament last week of having my bank account frozen by the Portuguese government into perspective. I'll be talking about that tonight on the Portugal Club. And look at this. This is sent in by Uncle Trustee. These are crocheted toys, I believe. This is not a toy. Some crocheted items. I'm not lost, just all alone. If I made you smile, please take me home. Yours to keep and take away. Hope you have a lovely day. And these are random acts of kindness that Uncle Trustee and Claudia found in the Algarve, just left by a lovely individual called Nanny M, who we thought was Nancy M, our friend here. It confused us, but isn't that lovely? A little random act of kindness gifts that have been left out for people. We didn't get to the Frango. We've got lots of Frango memes. We'll come back to that, like Frango here. Hey, here's a nice Dutch reference there, Frango. So it's a Portuguese joke. And the last Frango in Paris. We'll come back to these tomorrow. That's a good, isn't it? Last Frango in Paris. So and another quickie. Wells Frango. For our American viewers there. Okay. And then let's go to just finally to celebrate life with good cheer. Our Christmas Advent calendar open on our website. Let me see if you can see this first of all. Yes, there we go. There it is on the screen. And I think we'll replay day 11 yesterday, and the day before yesterday, and day 12. We've got a couple for you, as by way of a thank you and goodbye today. Good cheer coming from Caldas Terenia and Aveiro. Let's start with Nancy and Kari.
Happy Merry Christmas, everybody! We love you!
Yeah, we're counting down to Christmas and wishing you a lovely one. We'll come to Andy's Aveiro one yesterday. I just want to play a lovely, poignant video that I put together last night of the windmills, not the windmills of your mind, but the windmills of Gralha in Portugal here. And forget about the invitation at the end. This is just some lovely video of some handmade windmills by a lovely gentleman here in San Martinho de Porto. It just seems appropriate and right that there we are looking out over the endless sea, and there's the windmill that's been made lovingly by somebody, and they start and they stop, and there's some beautiful music. So I'll leave you this as our parting gift this morning. And thank you again, Ewout. Thank you. It's been lovely to meet you. Muito prazer. And hope you'll be back on Mrs. M's show, I think, later on this week, by the sound of it.
Maybe next year.
Yes. And Mamabear McGowan, thank you so much. Find her on Facebook as well. Thank you both. Let's go to that video. Have a lovely day, everybody. And bye for now. Ciao, ciao. a smile.